Now that we know that all sorts of information can be gotten from the physical evidence in a criminal investigation, let's shift to a more scientific classification of the physical evidence. Let's get away from the information and talk about the actual classifications. The first classification of the physical evidence in our investigation would be by the type of crime that's being investigated. For instance, is it a homicide? Is it a murder? Are we talking about a burglary investigation? Are we talking about a shooting investigation? And the reason that this classification can be useful is that it will actually give the analyst information about what sort of physical evidence to expect. However, it is not perfect because it will have a tendency to reduce the analyst's vision of the type of evidence. In other words, they will not expect the unexpected. So it is not a perfect classification system either. The second classification of physical evidence is based upon the type of material that the physical evidence is composed of. Is it paint? Is it glass? Is it metallic? Is it alive? This is a classification system that once again provides its value in that it will give the analyst a chance to begin in a certain area. But once again, it is not the perfect classification. The third classification of physical evidence that can be of value in the forensic laboratory is to classify that physical evidence based upon its general nature. Is it animal? Is it vegetable? Is it mineral? Or I'm sure the scientists in the laboratory would prefer to say, is it physical, is it biological, or is it chemical in nature? And here again, the value from this classification system is the fact that it gives the forensic scientist, the analyst, a starting point, a place to begin. A fourth classification is to classify the physical evidence by its physical nature. Now this is different because what we're talking about is its physical state. Is it solid? Is it liquid? Is it gaseous? Admittedly, 95% of the physical evidence that's analyzed in a forensic laboratory is going to be solid in nature. But the other classification systems, the other classification categories of being gaseous or liquid can also be of value. Another classification of the physical evidence is based upon the type of question to be resolved. And what I mean by that is to say, is this physical evidence going to be used as part of a reconstruction or reenactment of a particular crime? Bloodstain patterns, gunshot residues are examples of reconstructions. They are answering the question that needs to be resolved. In many cases, the question to be resolved in a criminal investigation, and part of this classification, is that the physical evidence can also exclude or exonerate suspects. Is the blood the same? Does the DNA match, or is it different? So this classification can also be of value in the criminal investigation, and it therefore useful to the lab. Another classification system has to do with how that particular item of physical evidence has been created. Was something broken? Was something torn? Was it an imprint? Was something cut? Or was there a contact of two surfaces with motion? Was it an indentation? Was there a residue found? So by classifying the physical evidence in this way, we can give the laboratory a beginning point, as we've discussed previously, but also it can resolve a particular question as to how that actual evidence came to be. What's the best classification system? Of the ones we've talked about, which one is the best? Well, actually, the best is a combination of them all. And in most forensic laboratories, you're going to find that's the most usable type of classification of the physical evidence. Can we associate it with a crime? Can we discuss how it was created? Is there a particular question we want resolved? What is its general nature? So the best classification system for physical evidence that is analyzed in a forensic laboratory is simply all of them.